So I just pulled apart this PS4 and I think we might have a disaster on our hands. I'm already seeing um, it looks like this HDMI port has been worked on before. You can see there's space around the joint. I can see there's space around the joint here. There's a lot of space around the joint here. Usually this is a result of not enough heat. I'm going to have to pull the board completely out so we can look at the other side. Hoping for the best, but expecting much, much worse on the other side, just based on what I'm seeing here, but we'll have to see. Okay, so it's maybe not as bad as I thought, but look at that. These pins are not even on. Terrible connection. What? I mean, it's not like bridged or anything, but like, look at that. That's not even on. Not at all. Not even close. None of these pins are soldered. And it's probably those leg joints being bad. We're going to have to take this port all the way off because this is just no good. So let's go ahead and set that up now. I'm going to just heat it from the bottom and take the port out off the top. And then I think we could reuse this port. The port looks fine on the inside. And it's likely just a bad joint. So there's no reason to throw away a good part. It's just a bad install. So let's go ahead and we'll take this port off. And none of the pins will get ripped off, hopefully. I don't think any of them are ripped off. It wasn't even a good connection to begin with. And we'll go ahead and do this proper. All right, so I just got to push my keyboard in here and got to bring this over. I'm just going to use this to see when the pins are going to be liquid. There we go, all in focus. I'm not even going to bother with flux. This should just be a straight shot removal. Yeah. I should use a bigger nozzle, actually. Just 1 second. I'm going to switch nozzles. Alright, got my larger nozzle on. Just didn't think about it. Okay. Just going to come from under. Let me move this forward a little bit. I'm just moving the heat back and forth. Let me move my mic a little closer. There we go. I don't want to melt this connector because I want to reuse it. And let's go ahead and move this in and we'll clean it off. Re-tin it. Actually, let me reposition here. We'll wick off try to wick out those holes as well. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's wick off all the old stuff. I'm going to turn my iron up as well. Going to 425 Celsius because this board is really thick and can run into a ton of issues if you're not using enough heat on this board. A lot of people will get scared because they're used to burning up stuff, but it's kind of hard to burn up, especially anything that's on the ground part of this board. Just make sure all these pins are in good shape. I'm also kind of curious about this. There's one of those pins and it looks like it's supposed to connect to that via, but it's not. It's going to be this one right here. I think that's supposed to connect right here, but it's not. So that could be an issue as well. We're going to definitely reconnect that, probably after the connector's on, but I could go ahead and just scrape off that via now. Let me get some cleaning supplies. I'll be right back. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So now I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna push my keyboard in. Oh, there we go. I'm gonna push my keyboard in. I'm gonna pull this over the edge. I am going to weigh down the board a bit. And I want to position this so I can see what's going on with those pins. And then I will heat this from the bottom. And we'll get this connected properly. I'm going to position it with my right hand, my more steady hand. This port does look good. Okay. I'm going to wait until those pins, you'll see the solder will liquefy. And that will be when it's time. And it should kind of even itself out very nicely. Let's see. Let's see. And let this cool down for a second here. And then we're going to wiggle check each of those pins. And then if that all looks good and dandy, then we are going to take care of the legs. Some people will do the legs first. That's fine. And then they'll do the pins. I like to make sure all the pins are secure and then the legs go down. That way I know for sure that I'm not going to have any issues later on with those pins coming up, because the pins were solid before the legs, and then you're making the legs super solid, which is just adding reinforcement. The legs are reinforcement. They shouldn't be just the entire structure. That's just my opinion. So we might go ahead and touch up those pins as well, but let's see what's going on. Before, when we checked all these pins, they were just loose. And how are we doing now? We got one loose there. Solid. 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 That one's loose. That one's loose. That one's loose. So maybe I didn't melt these pins enough. Let's do this. I'm going to clean it one more time, and then we're going to come back and try the heating from underneath again. Alright, so I cleaned it. I got some fresh flux on there. I'm going to flip this board around. We're going to come back. We're going to do that port heating one more time. most of them should be solid. I think maybe I need to leave the port on while I heat. Otherwise we get, the pins don't get heated up. So let's see if these all liquefy. Let's see. I think that looks a lot better. Let it cool. Let's check again. Okay, let's check again. And this is how it should be, you know? If it's loose, we go back and redo it. Just checking each of these pins. And kind of squeeze each pin. So I'm moving the tweezer over each pin and squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. Solid, super solid. Okay. Double check. Pin 2, 3, and 4. Now 5, 6, 7, 8, and I'm doing a moderate squeezing force here. 9, not forcing it. 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. But this is going to save you headache and save the customer headache later on. That looks great. Oops. So we're just gonna clean it up and we'll do the legs. I've learned the hard way that double checking your work is it's just better. Double check, triple check. And let's take a look at those joints up close. I'm going to take my microscope off the clip. Let's focus. Look at those. Those are all really nicely done. I'm a little concerned about the last 2 pins. I'm just going to make sure that's not bridging, and then we'll do the bottom. Alright, I'm heating up my iron. We're on the underside. I'm going to add some flux to this leg. My primary interest first is just to add a little bit of solder to the legs, and then we'll come back and heat them and really make sure they're in place. So my iron's getting closer to temperature. And you know, I've made this install mistake before of not not thoroughly heating. When you don't, you got to understand soldering is it's kind of like welding. Both metals need to be at the right temperature. If the solder's melting, that does not mean you're going to get a good joint. You need what you're heating to also be at a good temperature. So we're going to add a little there. And look at all of this bright green. That's ground. Without heat, it's nearly impossible to make sure that you're going to get a good enough bond. You see how my solder is kind of sticking? It's because this iron is not going to produce enough power to heat this whole surrounding area. So using a heat gun with your iron to take care of these joints is a really big deal. And you know, that might even be the case with industrial equipment. You might want the same thing. Okay, let's go ahead and do the second one. And then we'll come back with heat. We'll make sure that we have good joints. We could also add solder to the top, just for good measure. Maybe I'll try that this time, just because. All I'm doing is just adding solder, not worrying about it being a good joint right now, because it will be. And you'll see how that works. Okay, so now we have those 4 legs tacked. So let's clean up. I'm going to scrub it. We want fresh flux. It's going to give us a really nice, clean joint. Okay, so now I do got my air at 400. It doesn't have to be 400, but I have my iron at 425. So now I'm going to come in with my iron. Just going to kind of heat the surrounding area. It might be hard to tell, but it does make a big difference. Here's the old with heat. You can see it really gets in those holes, it gets in those crevices. This, you see a lot of gaps, and a lot of people will just blob it on top and call it done, and that's not enough. I've done it that way, it doesn't work. Not a good idea. Take your time, make sure the area is heated up enough. If you understand why. And the big thing is to know that your customers are not going to come back with issues if you do it properly. See how it's flowing in. Flowing in. Now those aren't pretty. There was already a lot of the solder mask missing, so getting a nice ball will be a little difficult. I think what we might be able to do is just heat it until it kind of shrinks in on itself. Let's try that. Let me come in with the iron one more time. I'm going to call that good. Let's flip it over. We'll clean up and then we'll flip it over. Triple check those pins, make sure they're all good. If we need to touch up, then we can. And then we'll reassemble and test. Hope for the best. Look at that. See, those legs are fully surrounded. It's not going to crack. Look at this. Just want to show you something. See the solder's coming up? It would not do that without heat. So let's go ahead and just do the top. Why not? Extra reinforcement's not going to hurt. Especially with this rear leg. I'm gonna come in from a distance. I don't want to get it too hot. Okay, I'll just do the other side the same way, and then when we're done, I'll check the pins. I'll be right back. All right, final pin check. Live on video. Let's come in. Just checking each pin. Not going anywhere. Beautiful. All right, we're going to call this install done. I'm going to reassemble and test, and I'll let you know how it goes. So we still do not have video. Power's fine. It's holding a steady power, but it's still not showing any video. Why? I tried safe mode. I tried with the drive, without the drive, with the different drive. Doesn't matter. Let's check these pins one more time, just to make sure it wasn't anything I did. Pretty sure they're all solid. And the other thing is I noticed that it was saying PS4 on the TV. Just nothing showed up. Let's put our meter in continuity mode. I'm going to test that fuse. I suspect it'll be fine. Maybe there's something else going on, like a bad filter or something else. That's fine. Now how about these diodes? I'm going to put my meter into diode mode. We're going to check red probe on ground. That doesn't look right. Do we have a bad diode? Or is it a bad cap? Is it shorting? We have a short. Now, is it this cap or is it this diode? Let's check some of these other components. That's nothing. Okay. I almost wonder if the previous person, maybe they used too much heat. Simple thing we could try is just removing that component. And we'll see if the short is resolved. I'm going to move to a smaller nozzle. How bizarre. Flex. I'm willing to put a bet on the diode. Maybe if not, then it's could be the IC. This air is a little high. You know what? Let me I'm coming at a different angle. I'm having a hard time accessing this. There, how's that? I'm coming right in here. Turn my airspeed up. I'm having a hard time. Let me get my iron on. Just gonna dab it with some unleaded on both sides. I'll be right back. Okay, so I added some unleaded on both sides. Gonna add some more flux. Let's come in at 418. Oops. Having some trouble. Okay. It's a pain in the butt. Did that fix the short? Short is gone. Beautiful. Now we just need a donor diode. I'm not sure what the value is supposed to be. Let's do a cross check on one of these. So red probe on ground. Put one of these on tail side. 0.54 volts. Okay, I'll be right back when I have a donor. Okay, so I do have a replacement diode. It's higher rating, but that's okay. It's a little bit bigger. Not going to be a problem. We want the line on the non-grounded side. Cool, my mic is still working. I'm getting thermal paste all over my hands. So I think what I want to do is I want to prep these pads first. Let's do that. Some fresh solder. What a lucky chance that the first time I check a diode, that's the one that's shorting. Okay, and then we have a little bit more flux in the right spot, hopefully. Put this lid back on. Let me turn this board a little bit so I have better access to what's going on. I'm going to turn it a little bit more. See what I can. One of these sides has a big ground plane on the bottom. Okay, that's this side. So I want it to be like that. Let me add some more flux. Turn the airspeed down a little bit. I'm going to touch up this rear joint. And we'll do a test. Put it continuity mode. There's ground. No more short. Diode mode. Red on ground. I'm going to do black over here. I think I might want to move that over just a little bit.
Fix it?
I'm working on it.
What else is wrong with it?
There was a shorted diode. So I'm trying to replace it.
You have the diode?
It's a different one.
Huh?
It's a different diode.
Is it gonna work?
We're going to find out.
Is it read by the HDMI thing?
Yep. So that I can check. Okay, I think we're looking good. We'll go test. Okay, so after some more troubleshooting, I did get it working, but I found this issue with this port. This was the port that was in there. It looks like there's a piece of shielding or something rather, in the back. And I'm wondering if that was causing this port not to work. Maybe, I don't know where this came from. This must have, I think this was already here. I can't seem to get it out. But I actually put a new port in and everything is working fine now. It was working, but it was, when I wiggled the connection, it would come loose. So I don't know what was going on. Look at this. It's like something got stuck in there. I'm just trying to see if I can get it out. And this is not in the new port. In the new port, it's just black. It's just black back there. So I'm gonna see if I could peel this out. Look at that. I bet this port would work fine now. What is this? It's like a piece of shielding from some crappy cable or something. Anyways, this one's a fix. So it was that port, replacing that port because it had this thing stuck in there. I didn't notice that until just now. and that shorted diode. Fixing those two issues resolved this particular HDMI port. It was a bit of a longer process, but the customer should be very happy. It should be good for another few years, assuming they're not totally rough with the port. Thanks for watching.